Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Yep. I'm just, well, as you see what the post is, I'm gonna talk about Ketanji. Give people a chance to come in. It doesn't seem like I'm not seeing nothing. Okay. I don't know if anybody is going to see this, but this is not what I don't. I'm going to, I think I'm going to be, it's showtime. Oh, no, we haven't gone. Go live. Hey, y'all. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Hey, y'all. How's everybody doing? Oh, I haven't been on here. Oh, hello, everyone. Nice seeing you. Um, I'm going to speak about something. Give a few more people a chance to come in. I'm glad to see you. Glad to see everybody in. It's nice to have somebody to talk to. Um, I have a channel. It's called Newsflash, formerly Things Worth Knowing, and it's on YouTube. And if you like what you hear tonight, what I have to speak on, if you'd like, I'd appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to my channel, which is Newsflash, formerly Things Worth Knowing, at BIGGIRL underscore 72. I would appreciate it if you like and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to give a few more people a chance, a couple more minutes to come in. How's everybody doing tonight? How are things going? How's the weather where you are? Because, boy, it got cold. It took a while for it to do it, but it got cold. We had snow flurries today. So the weather is, you know, the weather is, woof, it's getting cold. Cold weather is not my favorite. It's not my favorite thing. But anyway, glad to see you people here. Hello, Hunter Lee. Brian, I don't know if your name is Brian Blair or Blair Bryant, but hello, how are you? Um, you know, so, says two people watching. Well, I'm going to start now. For those of you, those 12 people, I see it's 12 people here. And like I said, if you like what I'm going to speak about tonight, I have a YouTube channel, which is Newsflash, formerly Things Worth Knowing. I'd like, if you subscribe to my channel, which is Newsflash, formerly Things Worth Knowing, at BIGGIRL_72. Okay. As you know, I'm going to start now. As you know, we have been going through these SNAP benefits. I don't know how many people have got SNAP, but there's a lot of people who actually depend on SNAP because they have very little money, and they, they just don't have it. A lot of elderly people, a lot of people who have children, who have young children, who work, and they don't make enough. They qualify for SNAP benefits. So, as you know, the president has not funded anything for the month of November. He said he was ordered to do so. He said he would do it, then he said he wouldn't do it, then he said he was going to partially fund it, and everything. So, so finally he went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ordered, stopped the order that the other courts gave, and ordered him to temporarily stopped it. And everybody found out that it was Justice Brown Jackson, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Once they found out it was her who did it, they were wondering why she did it. And there's an attorney, Michael Popak, who is with the part of the Midas Touch news network, independent news network, and they tell us things that aren't normally, you don't see in mainstream media anymore, because mainstream media has bowed down to President Trump. And anyway, so I'm going to let everybody listen who comes in and listens to Michael Popak, who is an attorney, explain of why she did it, because everybody was like, why would she do that? Like, people are trying to make it seem like she has taken, that she is siding with Trump. But there was, according to Michael Popak, when you listen to it, you'll understand what's going on with it. So I hope you like it, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask it. Put it in the comments section, and it's going to be interesting, because when I heard it, I was like, okay, that makes sense. It really makes sense that the way when he'll explain it. So for the few who are here, I'm going to play it now. Let me see something. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Share. Okay. Okay. So you should be okay. Wait a minute. Let me go back. Review something.
As Donald Trump and his administration finds new ways to screw the American people, and especially the underprivileged, those below the poverty line, even as late as Sunday night and into Monday, in terms of the SNAP food program for 42 million people. 1 out of 8 people in America are on the SNAP anti-hunger payment program. As he tries to figure out new ways to try to claw back the money that's already been spent by the states and sent to them on their electronic cards so they can feed their families, and trying to hold the states accountable for it. And as the shutdown in the background may or may not be ending in the next 24 to 48 hours, depending upon when MAGA Mike Johnson can recall the Congress to approve of whatever's coming out of the Senate. As all that's going on, we've got in breaking news, the First Circuit Court of Appeals has issued its order that Ketanji Brown Jackson so masterfully set up from her perch on the United States Supreme Court. I'm going to make it all make sense here on Legal AF Monday. I'm Michael Popak. Let's get to it, because I've got in my hands, and we'll be posting on Legal AF Substack, the order that Ketanji Brown Jackson said needed to be issued with dispatch. We've got it here right now from the First Circuit about the SNAP payments. Now, this is regardless of what happens with the opening. I mean, I want the government to open, particularly on terms that are important for the American people about Obamacare. But I'm also focused on 42 million Americans and making sure they don't go hungry. So let me tell you how we got here, and then I'll go into this new order written by Judge Rickleman and why it's so important that she wrote that order in a moment. Donald Trump did not allow his U.S. Department of Agriculture to spend the $4.6 billion contingency fund to fund the up to $8 billion a month required to keep people from going hungry. He would not allow his USDA to spend that money, requiring 2 different groups of people in the last 10 days to run to 2 different courts. Judge McConnell in Rhode Island, led by Democracy Forward, and public interest groups and church groups and cities, and another group of 23 attorneys general for blue states who ran to Massachusetts. Judge McConnell came out with the strongest order. Chief Judge of Rhode Island, he issued a series of orders. He issued a temporary restraining order requiring that by last Monday or Wednesday at the latest, that the federal government make their payments. In making their payments, he also required that they either choose to pay the full $8 billion, tapping into another series of funds that were available to the government. We call them Section 32 funds. They come from customs duties. Either do that and top it up to $8 billion and make a full payment for November so people don't go hungry, or pay less than that using the $4.65 billion number, which is the contingency fund, and then explain to the court why they were making less than full payments, but do it all within last week. The government objected. They filed their appeal to the First Circuit. They tried to get a stay at the First Circuit to stop having to make the payments. Yet in the same breath, they made $5 billion worth of payments. Apparently nobody told Donald Trump that. And by making 5 out of 8 billion, while it's not enough, it did undermine their argument that they needed an emergency appeal down the road to stop them from funding things they didn't want to fund because they already funded the 5 billion. Now, Donald Trump didn't like the fact that they funded the 5 billion over his objection. So over the weekend, late on Saturday, he had the USDA issue new memoranda to the states telling them that they wanted to claw back the 5 billion that had been paid while the case was still pending at the United States Supreme Court and the First Circuit. Not a smart move tactically for Donald Trump. And again, trying to harm the poor. Nothing like trolling the poor, our most disadvantaged group in America. We're talking about children and babies and disabled and veterans, during an election season or at any time. I mean, Sky Perryman put it the best in her statement for Democracy Forward. It is a sad state of affairs that we need to sue to force the American president to care about Americans. And so all that's going on over the weekend as a group of senators is trying to reopen the government. Now, whether that happens between now and Wednesday when the House comes back into session, the question is, these people need milk today. These people need nutrition today. So Ketanji Brown Jackson over the weekend, and she took a little heat for this. I think I broke down the analysis so people felt better about it. But Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's the first judge that sits over the First Circuit Court of Appeals in this system of process, when the First Circuit refused to grant a temporary administrative stay to allow for the appeal to be filed, she stepped in, granted an administrative stay for what turned out to be 48 hours to give the First Circuit time to issue their 23-page decision about whether they were going to stay the order of Judge McConnell so that the additional $3 billion would be paid, whether that was going to be blocked so that $3 billion would be denied the poor and the hungry. She wanted to give time to the First Circuit to make that record. We now have the order of the First Circuit. And what Ketanji Brown Jackson said in her order at the Supreme Court level is, once that order comes out, she's going to lift her stay within 48 hours. We're now on the clock. We're now on a 48-hour clock now that Trump has gotten this with the backdrop of the political negotiations to reopen the government. Is he going to run back to the United States Supreme Court and ask them to overturn the First Circuit to allow him not to pay poor people to keep them from being hungry? Think about this. He's fighting to save $3 billion as he spends hundreds of millions of dollars over the weekend to build ballrooms and go back and play golf at Mar-a-Lago instead of helping getting the government reopened. Just think about the depravity of this. But we're on the clock now here on Monday on Legal AF. We've got the order of the First Circuit. I'm going to read to you from certain pages. I'm going to tell you who's involved in it, and what it means for the next 48 hours in parallel to what's happening at the government level to try to reopen the government. It almost doesn't matter. We need this process to be resolved by the courts at this moment. 3-judge panel at the First Circuit. Chief Judge Barron, Obama appointee. Gelpi, a Biden appointee, and Rickleman, a Biden appointee. So it's Obama and 2 Bidens. Now, Judge Rickleman, she's very interesting, and she wrote the majority decision because she, for years, had been a tremendous advocate for the Center for Reproductive Rights, for women's reproductive rights and abortion rights. Then she got on the bench and went right to the First Circuit Court of Appeals. So she knows about depravity. She knows about this administration and Donald Trump. She fought hard against them for years as an advocate, as a senior litigation counsel for the Center for Reproductive Rights. Here's what she writes here on in her order. Let's start with the amount of people that are involved. 42 million people. 1 out of every 8 Americans, she wrote, use monthly benefits from the Federal Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program to buy food for themselves and their family. Then she goes through a series of orders in October through November that took away the right to tap into the contingency funds that were at about $5 billion or so because Trump told them to. That doesn't even account the 3 or 4 changed positions over this past weekend, which left SNAP recipients reeling. Could you imagine waking up or checking your account hourly to determine whether you had enough money to feed your family? The emotional distress caused by Donald Trump. Here's what Judge Rickleman for the 3-0 voted majority says on page 5. For low-income Americans, SNAP is a vital bulwark against hunger and food insecurity. Access to food is, of course, a basic human need. Further, food security is a critical factor in health and well-being, the ability to stay in a stable housing, and children's physical and educational development. I mean, there's 14 million children who get these benefits. Without SNAP, tens of millions would go hungry, the first among a cascade of other health and financial harms that would befall those forced to go without enough food, particularly in the month leading up to winter. Thanksgiving. So then you go to page 18 of her order. And the order, of course, refuses to stay Judge McConnell's order that they come up with the additional $3 billion and make that payment post haste. She says for the majority on page 18 that effectively the government made a series of errors in their position taking, and she chastises them and tells them this is why you're losing. To begin with, she says on 18, we emphasize what the parties do not dispute. The government agrees that it can use the contingency funds to provide partial November SNAP benefits, despite its initial position that those funds were inaccessible. She points out that even though they told Judge McConnell they can't make the payment, they paid out $5 billion in hours. Indeed, in its stay papers to us, the government requests a stay only to the extent that the district court's orders require USDA to expend funds beyond the SNAP contingency fund. See, this is the fight over the $3 billion, not the first $5 billion. And the judge thinks that's very, very telling. She also says the other fund they can tap, Section 32, which comes from custom receipts, has $23 billion in it. So they could take out the $3 billion, leave the child nutrition fund intact effectively, but fully fund SNAP payments for some of the same overlapping group of people. And so at the end of the order, she reminds the Trump administration something that they seem to have forgotten on page 23. She's citing a case from the Supreme Court. Federal courts are not reduced to issuing injunctions and hoping for compliance. Once issued, an injunction may be enforced. So they said McConnell was right to call everybody together on Thursday this past week and enforce his temporary restraining order by saying, look, I gave you a choice. Pay the $4.65 billion out of the $8 billion that's needed, and then tell me why you're holding back on the remainder, and I'll tell you whether that's arbitrary and capricious. Because if it's arbitrary and capricious, I'm going to force you to pay the full $3 billion. Well, the Trump administration said, it's really hard for us to make partial payment, and that'll delay things weeks or maybe months. And the judge says, you're creating a false problem, a false emergency. Make the full payment. Tap into $3 billion out of the $23 billion set aside for child nutrition. It'll leave plenty for the program and top up the payment for November as we're waiting for the government to reopen, and do it now. You're playing games. You're holding human beings politically hostage and undermining their food security. So that's what we have. Now let's talk quickly about the 48-hour clock we're on. Ketanji Brown Jackson, when she stayed for 2 days to allow the First Circuit to issue that opinion, which again is up on Legal AF Substack, she said, after that, I'm lifting it in 48 hours. That gives the parties, mainly the Trump side, time to run somewhere. Now they've run out of time at the First Circuit, run out of options. So now they're going to have to run back to the United States Supreme Court and ask for some sort of, if they're going to do it, some sort of emergency application, emergency appeal, and see if there's 4 votes to take it up and 5 votes to rule in their favor, that they don't have to make $3 billion worth of effectively child hunger payments, anti-hunger payments. They don't have to do that in the next 3 or 4 days while hopefully the government opens. Look, until the government's open, as I said to my team here, it's not open. And so we have to continue in the court system. Is some of this mooted out by the fact that government may open and fund these things? Maybe. But we need to also set a precedent for the future about how Trump cannot play with people's lives Russian roulette with 5 bullets in the chamber. So I'm going to continue to follow it. You're here on Legal AF. Thanks for being here. Hit the subscribe button here. Check to see if you are a subscriber. Come over to Legal AF YouTube and to Legal AF Substack. And for a monthly payment of $677, that's what pays for this reporting here on this channel. So we ask you if you can swing it to become a paid member as well and become a free member here on Legal AF YouTube. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak.
I'm Michael Popak, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer, now building a what we started together on Legal AF.
Well, I guess you heard everything. Let me. Well, I guess you heard everything. Yeah. So anyway, that's it, folks. So she did You know, everybody wants to blame Justice Jackson, but she did it to stop Trump from going further in courts, different courts, and it would take years for, it would take longer to get this money out. So he has an ultimatum now. He has an ultimatum, and we'll see what's going to happen. We'll see what's going to happen. If you'd like, you can, make a comment. Feel free to make a comment. Everybody else is making a comment, so feel free to make a comment if you like. If not, I'll be ending this, and look for more. I'm going to end it now. Good night.